welcome everyone to our fourth meeting of the Teach Climate Network and Book Club. We will discuss today a little bit of water and climate change and the book, The Water Knife. Yeah, just real quick, I'm just going to share my screen, Wendy, just because you are new and it's just kind of fun to go over some of this stuff. Oh, not that one.
Oh, that's a lot of tabs.
That is how my brain operates, unfortunately. So just a quick overview of the Teach Climate Network. It's a joint effort between Climate Generation in Minneapolis and the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Us as an organization, we work strictly in climate change. We work with youth, educators, the public, and influentials. Mainly these populations are in Minnesota and the Midwest, but more and more we're getting out into other populations, other states in our youth and educators realm. This is not something that you need to be aware of, but if you want, questions and comments, you can use the chat box. Otherwise, it's really chill, and just if you've got something to say, just say it. Well, please, if you've got any questions or feedback and stuff, like I said before, I have not read the book. I feel a little bit of guilt, but you shouldn't. It's just, a time to talk about climate change education every third Wednesday. And then we also ask for a volunteer blogger each month on the book that was read. So yeah, we're super excited each month to put something out there from our network, which is pretty sweet. So that's enough of that. How do I stop sharing? Oops. This is the first time we're using a meeting on Zoom. I'm sorry, it's my dog. A meeting on Zoom versus a webinar. So the controls are just a little bit different, so I do apologize. But yeah, so I guess we can start talking about the book. Betsy has kind of given me some of her notes, but if you just want to give us kind of a synopsis, Betsy, and then kind of what you thought, and we can kind of chat about a few pieces.
Okay. So basically the book takes place in a dystopian West where Phoenix is pretty much the only city that's around in Arizona. And chaos is ensuing because there's no water. And it brings in a lot of water issues from the West. The water knife itself is there's a character called Catherine Case that's the head of the Southern Nevada Water Authority, and she's basically been going out and stealing everybody's water, and her water knives are like the enforcers, and she gets these guys out of prison and then has them enforce things for her. And just loosely, she's based on Pat Mulroy, who was with Southern Nevada Water Authority. So it follows a few characters. One's a journalist in Phoenix, one's a water knife that's come to Phoenix, and then another character is a refugee young girl, a teenager that's from Texas that came over to Arizona, and now she's basically an orphan. She has no family left. So, and yeah, so there's some intrigue, and I don't know if I want to give the whole story away to you.
No, you don't have to give the whole story away.
Yeah, don't give it all away.
I'll definitely read it next week, but
I lived in Phoenix for 10 years in my life a long time ago, and I visit that part of the world periodically, and I think it was living in that country that made me so aware that water is a luxury and it's everything, and you know just how critical it is. And I've gained a new appreciation for people in parts of the country and world where they always have water. There's water everywhere, and they don't have that mentality. But I acutely had it my 10 years in Arizona. Without water, you die.
Yeah, and can be pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Anyway, so actually this was my second time around with the book, and I was saying the first time I went through it, I thought, oh, there's no way this can happen, so, because well, that's my job, is to do water education, and we work a lot with the water industry. We work a lot with, we're the Water Resources Research Center, the federally funded center for Arizona in our state. And, I thought, no, we're planning ahead. Arizona has the Groundwater Management Act, which was some really good legislation that we passed in 1980 that ensured that for all these actively managed areas, of which Phoenix is one, Tucson is one, and down there's one more large actively managed area, that if you do any new development, you have to have a 100-year supply of water for that. You have to guarantee that, that kind of stuff. And, that was just basically to keep from over pumping our aquifer. Well, we also, a major source of our water is Colorado River water. And what we teach teachers a lot about is the, just the whole Colorado River Compact. And Arizona came to the compact in 1922, and we have junior water rights. So when there is a reduction in the flow in the lower basin states, of which Arizona, Nevada, California, and Mexico are all part of the lower basin states, we're going to get a cut before California, because California has senior water rights. And so that's projected. They keep pushing off when that's going to happen. And it's all based on the level of Lake Mead on January 1st. And one of the things that the partners, the different states in the lower basin has been doing is starting to store some of their water, including Mexico's been storing water in Lake Mead. Instead of taking the full allotment, they store some of that water. So it's just a thing where it's a balancing act, and the whole system is at a structural deficit, because back when they did the Colorado River Compact and they based your allotment between the upper basin and the lower basin, was based on some of the wettest years ever. And some ways that they know that was because of dendrochronology, looking at the tree rings and realizing that later. And so there's another way you can bring in some of the science and stuff to your students. So what made me change my mind around in this, because in this book too, it's like states have their own militias and people can't go across state lines and stuff like that. And one thing that changed my mind was in the paper, LA Times, on December 3rd, they were talking about how Utah is now, I just looked at it, they've got approval to do a two-year environmental impact statement or research into building a pipeline that goes 90 miles from Lake Powell to this one county where St. George, Utah is and stuff. And they plan on getting 86,000 of acre feet of water a year and pumping it uphill. And so they're upper basins. I'm assuming that they're getting it from their allotment in upper basin. But what worried me about it is they talked about the water usage in that area is basically around 300 gallons per person per day. And in Tucson, we're at 80 gallons per day. And
that's shocking.
Yeah, and it's shocking to me. And I know, like, when I've looked at, like, especially when California was a major drought, looking at their per capita water usage, and even traveling through California, they do so much stuff that we don't do in Arizona. Like, they were watering, in the middle of the day. They were watering grass where they didn't really need grass in a parking lot median, and then half of it's going in the street, So all that kind of stuff, as you mentioned, Wendy, are more conscious of.
Yeah,
So I started thinking about, well, maybe there could be something, because we are downhill. We're downstream of all these people. So, as they do in the book, they, cut off the supply. If there's chaos, they could do that. So who knows? But that was some of the main things that hit me from what I know of what's going on.
Thank you. Yeah, you had sent me your notes, and looking at the difference of these different areas and states of how much water different areas are using. It's just shocking. And I was in California like 3 years ago. So, still in their major drought. And we stayed at a couple of Airbnbs, and the people that we were staying, with are like, okay, well, put the bucket in the shower so that you can collect water to flush the toilet. And so we, respected that and did those practices, but that's so little when compared to, they're watering the median.
Yeah. I know.
Or industry or.
Yeah, it's got to be coming from everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. And there is, and then part of California's problem, like we've had some of the major players from California come and present at conferences or brown bags and stuff that we've done, is that they had no groundwater management act, and they're slowly trying to put something together, but they've depleted so much groundwater that it was actually visible from the Gray satellite, that. Because the gravity that they could measure from that. So
I read up on the laws in Colorado, but I read routinely about our depletion of aquifers in.
Oh yeah, because the Ogallala.
I don't think we just rely on, we're going to use all the water and the snow will keep coming. It's like, oh no.
Yeah, and you guys are like with the Ogallala aquifer, which is really contested right now and having problems. So so there's, it goes back to when John Wesley Powell first went through the canyon, and he decided that, the big battle's going to be all these water in the West, and it
was probably right.
Right. Anyway, the other thing too, so in the book they have like the whole plot is based around some ancient water rights, and they talk about these ancient water rights they've unearthed in these archives that people are fighting over, and it was from the Pima Indian tribe, is the way they said it in the book. So I actually looked up a little bit more on that, because Pima, they're not called Pima, and there's actually two different tribes, the Akamil Odom, and then they're the river people. So I thought it was kind of ironic. That's what it means in English, river people. But they're in Maricopa County up in Phoenix area, and they're from the Gila River and the Salt River. And we've worked some with the Gila River tribe, and one of the guys that's the head of the tribe is going to talk at our water conference this year. And then they're related to the Tohono, desert people in Pima County that are in Tucson area. But most people in Arizona only know the tribes because they have casinos now. And they can get casinos with concerts.
Here too.
Yeah. But there's I think it's the 10 tribes in Arizona. They all have senior water rights. So if Colorado River water gets, when they reduce what they call the Central Arizona Project, which is our Colorado River water allotment, the tribes will not get a reduction. But not all of the tribes receive water directly from the Colorado River, because they're not on the Central Arizona Project canal, or they're not directly on the river. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of wheeling, what they call water wheeling, trading things back and forth. So that was another thing, because when they talk about water rights in there, they're interesting, because there's all different levels of water rights, and people, like even within like Arizona for the Colorado River allotment, when we do get a reduction, agriculture is going to be reduced first, and then municipalities come after that. And so they're always planning for, who's going to take the cut, how they're going to deal with the cut, and what's going to go on from there. The other good part about Arizona and Tucson with water is that, so in Tucson area, we get 144,000 acre feet of water from the Colorado River a year, and we use 98,000 acre feet a year of water. So what we're doing now with our utility is they recharge it all into the ground, and we're banking like a third of that water every year. And we've actually built our aquifer up. So that's one of the reasons why Tucson water feels pretty good about us.
That is a good news story.
Yeah, good for you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Plus, a lot of the work we do with students is, doing water audits at school and showing how technology can reduce water. So we change out aerators on faucets and then have the students quantify that. We end up doing irrigation audits of their athletic fields, and then they make recommendations to water more efficiently. They can do a home water audit where they change out an aerator at home and quantify, what they save. And then with this whole NOAA grant we have, we're going to be doing rainwater harvesting to create green spaces at schools. So.
Great. That's some awesome work. Thank you for all of that. I really like the kind of research that you did related to the tribes in the area and the Native Americans in the area. I think that shows a really clear connection to social studies. So often, we have climate change in science, which absolutely climate change is necessary in a science classroom, but we found that it's been almost easier to get climate change into social studies classrooms. And so this is showing that you can do research, related to these people in the area and looking at the history of water rights and how that relates to the area. So I appreciate that part of your information. So thank you.
Yeah. And then, this is like a lot of the fiction that we've been reading is a good social justice thing too. And talking about social justice, because in this book too, they bring in, they have, what do they call them? They're not like Salvation Army, but there's water pumps that people can go to and they can get water, but they're still charging for this water, but it's for the average person to go and get, fill up a bottle full of water. So they talk about that in the book too. And then they talk a lot about these Mary Perrys, and they're this religious group, and they have like tents that people come to, and they try and save people, and they're really an interesting kind of group. So if you guys read the books, I'd like to know your feeling on them. But I was looking at a blog from the author, and he was talking about, because I was wondering how he got the name Mary Perry, and it's spelled Perry. And it was because during the drought in Texas, Rick Perry just said, "Oh, we're going to just pray for rain," and that was his solution, was just to pray for rain rather than deal with climate change and stuff like that. So that's where he got the name from it. But,
way to sleuth that out.
Yeah, because what did they do with that? But anyway.
Yeah, the bar is high here for the blog writing.
Well, I got to narrow it down, but yeah, well, part of it is just because that's what I do for my job. So
right.
with project.
No, it's great, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, but anyway, some of the questions I thought of though that you guys could probably answer without reading the book was one was based on change. So they said that a lot of the characters are nostalgic for the past and remember that life wasn't always like this. And so my question was, is it helpful to remember the past, or is it better to adapt to the now?
Wendy?
Wow. So I'm a big believer in both. because I think we can learn so much from our past. So I would hate to not try to remember the past, but to remember it and do nothing then, and not go into adaptation mode for adapting to now is, that seems like folly. But to remember, learn, and use that to adapt seems wise, in my opinion. I mean, I think of lots of times in my life, even demographics in the West I remember Colorado when no one cared to live there and it was too cold, and now we can't stop people from coming, and what that's doing to our lives. The question is, what do I do with that? I start by not trying to convince everyone to move to Colorado.
Very good.
So yeah, I think there's value in both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree. I think if you're looking at the past and just saying that this isn't how it used to be, and maybe it doesn't completely equate with this situation, but I'm just okay with the status quo and how things have been, and this is how it's always been. That's definitely not the way that we want to look at things. But like you said, Wendy, if you want to look at the past and learn from how things were done in the past, and then move on to how do we adapt to this new future that we have, or new reality that we have.
Is that kind of learning from the past a theme in this book, or not?
It's basically it's the people are in survival mode and they're trying to survive, and part of looking at the past is thinking that it brings me to my other question is about human nature, is that people were more, I don't know if I want to say good at heart, but they helped each other out, and they worked together more. And in this book, it's more just, cutthroat and just try to, take advantages of many other people as you can. And so, it does come in, especially in the ending. And it's interesting in the ending when it comes in. So
the ultimate part of that, especially since you brought in the ancient peoples, is learning from the real past, right? And
right,
might have oral traditions of past long before our present memory. And
right, because a lot of what you do to be sustainable in the desert is live more like people used to live, Sure, you're harvesting that water that's coming and saving that water and growing things that can grow within our environment that are adapted to the desert, that kind of thing. So doing more local and appreciating that. So yeah, the other one I've thought of, and I wrote a blog before on ClimateGen about it, was this whole idea about environmental amnesia. And people forget about things and they just accept things and move forward. And sometimes that can be bad too, as if you don't remember things and you don't strive to protect what's valuable.
That was a wonderful blog. And there's a picture of Betsy as a child in there too.
Where do we see the blog?
I can find it and put it up and put it on the chat log.
Awesome.
Anyway, but so then I was talking about human nature, and that there's a lot of different kind of personalities that come out, or personality traits that come out in people in this book. And a lot of them aren't very nice. There's a lot of violence in this book, and a lot of torture and hatred and things like that. And so, I was wondering if there's still good in people, if you can still find good in people in really dire situations.
I like to live in a world where I believe the answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think we see it, but of course, I've never been in the worst of the most dire situations.
Right.
That's kind of what I was thinking too. Like when they're trying to, like you said, be in survival mode, and are we gonna have water? I mean, that's the most survival mode you can be in. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I would agree that I would like to. I live in the world where, yes, you can find good in people, but
Yeah.
is there time in this situation? Are people willing to show
Right. One of the little things that was talked about in the book, one of the characters had a neighbor before that was in Phoenix that had come from India. And he talked about how if this situation had happened in India, we would have survived much nicer because everybody knows their neighbors. And not everybody knows their neighbors in Phoenix is what he was saying. So,
Yeah, well, that's a really good point, is who is your community and what are you willing to sacrifice for them? And if they are a stranger, it takes a whole nother degree of benevolence to care about a stranger than your community.
That's a good point.
However you define that.
Yeah. And then it was interesting too with the whole idea of, another topic that you could kind of relate it to today is there's a lot of refugees that end up in Phoenix. So they, they talk a lot about people from Texas and people from Mexico and people from New Mexico. They, started heading out west and they ended up in Arizona, and then they couldn't get out of Arizona. And so there's a hierarchy among the people that are there, and there's a lot of animosity there about refugees. And so that's, a whole nother topic that.
Can I clarify that? Are you talking the book, real life, or both?
In the book. But you can compare it to real life because, with the whole situation that's going on now with trying to keep refugees from coming into this, into the U.S.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure whether you were talking book or current news.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of ties in there, and I think it's a good way to bring it back, back to what's happening now. And does it make a difference if that person is coming from another country, or does it make a difference if they're coming from another state? Would you let that person?
Well, and the question is, make a difference to whom?
Yeah. So
your neighbor or some decision maker or somebody way upstream.
I think that idea of immigrants and of refugees has been a theme in a couple of the books that we've read. What was Exodus? When you haven't read that, that's a really good one. And the idea of refugees. There was multiple times during that book where I was like, whoa, when was this written? Like, this could have been written 6 months ago. And it was probably like a decade.
Yeah.
But definitely themes coming back in a lot of these cli-fi books that are very relative to what's happening in our world or in our country right now.
Right.
I'm both excited to read it and afraid it will capitalize on my worst nightmares of the inevitable water wars of the West. And I've always wondered, which century will that happen? And it's never been, I don't think it will happen, will it or won't happen. I just think more it's a matter of when will it happen? Because our society is not resilient to a mega drought. We're just not.
Well, it's status quo again of like, this is how we've always done things. Like, I've been able to water my lawn whenever I want to, and I've been able to wash my car and not have a spigot on it, and all these things. And industry is not held accountable, and agriculture practices are not what they should be. And there's nobody that's saying, wait a minute, this is a problem, especially in Minnesota, land of 10,000 lakes. The idea of not having water is not top of mind on anybody's mind.
They should go to Arizona.
Absolutely. Well, even still in Minnesota, we have we have plenty of droughts. We have plenty of water quality issues. It doesn't matter that we've got all these lakes. We've got plenty of water quality, water issues, but it's not top of mind because there's a lake around every corner.
Yeah.
So that's not to say worse, but it's a different kind of issue because you're still dealing with water problems, but nobody's thinking about it.
Right. Just like nobody thought about, took for granted, the availability of clean water in Flint, Michigan.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think in Colorado, the mindset is certainly much more concerned about the availability of snow to supply the ski industry than there is about, would you like to drink next
Right.
a few years from now.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think about, but it's definitely not what people think about.
Right.
Yeah. I posted in the chat, there's another cool site. It's called beyondthemirage.org. And there's a documentary, and then there's also like a thing where you can create your own documentary. And this was part of a project that some of the people I work with worked on as part of the Arizona Prize for raising awareness about water. And all of the video clips in there for the create your own documentary are about water issues in the West, talking to all the different experts, talking about people whose well has gone dry, that kind of stuff. And we've used it with students and teachers before. You go through and you can create a stack of different clips to create your own documentary based on what topic you want to explore within there. And I think there's like around 200 video clips out there.
It's so awesome you brought that up because I met the guy behind it at the
Cody
Summit last year.
Uh-huh.
He and I have been in discussion ever since then because I was so inspired by not only the story that he told and the film clips on that topic, but also just the tool and the opportunity for doing stealth STEM with, having people create documentaries and not realizing that they're at the same time learning about real scientific issues.
Yeah.
That's so great. I love it. It's a great project.
Yeah.
So you worked on it too?
My supervisor did, and then we ended up working with them, just getting schools to use it, and we were trying to do some more improvements on, like, it's all on PBS Learning Media now, so they've got all the clips out there too. But I know we've been writing grants to try and get some more functionality and letting teachers use it and stuff. But it's out there and anybody can use it and create things. And we've had them create their own little spaces and do like judging of the different clips. And so it's pretty cool. The best part is if you go out there and you find Pat Mulroy, when they interviewed her, she's the one from SNWA and where the Catherine case is based on. She's sitting in this chair and she looks like this giant blob. And she's not fat. It was not a very good, way to have her situated for this interview.
Wow.
So every time I see her, I keep thinking of like Jabba the Hutt or something. And I asked somebody else at work and they're like, yeah, I think so too.
That's funny.
Yeah, I just found the name of the guy that I've been in contact with. It's Cody Sheehy.
Yeah, Cody. He's
great. He and I really have an affinity for trying to figure out how to do more in other geoscience topics, and I believe it'll come to pass. We just haven't been able to find the right connection yet.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, Cody's great. He was the mastermind behind that. Cool. Anyway, yeah, I'll put that out in the blog too for people to use because it's a good tool and a lot of good
tool. It's an exciting tool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's cool. I think kids would really love that.
Yeah.
I wonder if that, like the technology of doing that has been copied in other projects or anything.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that they, so like, one of the things the university does is, have like I think a lot of universities do this where they have a place where you can market spin-offs and stuff. And I think that one's out there for people to be able to pick up.
Yeah, as I understand it, Beyond the Mirage was like the pilot project, and the company, the program they're trying to get going as an entity is called Film Stacker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, calling the tool film stacker.
Got it.
Cool. That would
Yeah.
be really fun. I think kids would really love that and eat it up. And yeah, it's very, very stuffy.
Yeah, they're making videos, and they actually have theirs, and they can claim it and take credit for it and point people to it as a creation of theirs. And yet, if you've done scientific vetting of the video clips and the elements that you've contributed, while they're doing that, they're learning real important.
Yeah, there is a lot of vetting that went into those videos, and it was a big thing that they, had to get only experts and things like that in there. So
Yeah.
and then make them just in short enough clips that people would really use them and watch them.
You'll know I'm a happy girl if you ever see one come to pass that's on some different topic that's been done in association with AMS, because I really want it to happen.
Oh, cool. That sounds good.
Well, I hope you do. That would be great. We would use that.
Yeah.
I do too. If money grew on trees or I was a wealthy woman, we'd already be doing it.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
Cool.
Anyway.
Anything else about the book or kind of water and climate change? Otherwise, I will throw up a couple more slides to chat, and then we'll.
Well, I learned a lot in that, Betsy, and it was really stimulating.
Yeah.
Thank you for your homework to bring that to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was wonderful. All right, well, I'm going to share screen again. I'll just do Chrome this time. All right, is that working? You see that? So each time we do a network meeting, we just like to show an activity that's related to the book that we're reading, and everything comes from CLEAN, from the CLEAN network. So this was just one that I saw, Drought in the Colorado Basin. Just a really cool set of visualizations that talk through a drought, 16-year drought as of 2016, as of last year, and how it affected the Colorado River Basin. A lot of interaction, a lot of great visuals and stuff in this. And then I think, this one, it says supports next gen science standards, and they just went through and connected like everything to NGSS, which is great and clean. So
cool.
Would you mind throwing that URL in the chat too, so I can?
Absolutely can.
That'd be awesome.
I never want to take this picture down, because who doesn't enjoy a lovely shot of Kit Harington. But just real quick, upcoming cli-fi books. Next month, we're going to be looking at Drawdown. So we're going to step away again from cli-fi and look at the real deal. I've read only a couple pages of this book, so I'm really excited to get down into this and read it. Have you guys read Drawdown yet?
No, I haven't though.
Excellent.
No, I don't. I'm going to have to try to acquire it and get to some reading.
Well, I think I have the authority to do this, Wendy. If you are interested in blogging for us, I can get it for you, and we will send you a copy.
Blogging on that book?
Yes.
The timing is super lousy for me to promise that.
No worries. If it's not I can show you kind of what we're looking for when we want to blog. It's nothing incredibly intense, but if you
my pain is like I'm only not traveling 3 days in January.
Oh man. Well, maybe we'll try it another month.
It might give me some reading time, maybe,
but it's fairly inexpensive. I think it's only about $20, and it's a big book. So I think a lot of the work that was done in this book was done by Paul Hawkins, like graduate assistants or other like students. So I don't know if that's one of the reasons why the cost is kept down, but it's not very expensive. February, I haven't chosen a book yet. I had a couple of ideas, but we'll go back into something more cli-fi related. So if either of you have an idea, we can definitely go with that. Otherwise, I'll go back to the list. And then this is just kind of what we look for when we're doing blogs. Just some basic questions. How did it work as a story? Obviously, Drawdown is not cli-fi, but how would you use it with students? And then other educational or scientific resources that you could use with it could be part of that blog. But really, it's just kind of what did you think about it. And our next meeting will be January 17th at 7. Same setup. Any thoughts on a book for February, cli-fi? Otherwise, I will go. My thoughts were actually to do 2 books, just because there was kind of a middle school and maybe an elementary version. Buried Sunlight. Well, it's not even necessarily elementary, but it's more of a picture book. But it looks at really how we get non-renewable resources and where that stuff comes from. And then the other book was Same Sun Here. And that book is, it's written with 2 characters, one from Kentucky and one from New York, and it's written in letters. They're pen pals. And its main focus is mountaintop removal and mining. So we used that one when we worked with a school in Washington, D.C. They changed their 6th grade curriculum to be climate change centric, and we used that one as more of a social studies and science book.
And what was the name of that one again?
Same Sun Here.
I know that some people voted on that one when we originally had a vote, so maybe we can grab some more people back in that were interested before with that one.
Yeah, it's a really great book, and it's been 6 or 8 months since I read it. It's a pretty quick read. I like the letter format that the kids are writing, and that one too. There's also some themes of kind of immigration and maybe not necessarily refugees, but the student that lives in New York, she's actually from India. So it's kind of some interesting themes that are very prevalent today.
So I have a question. Will you follow up with this for all the folks that weren't on the event tonight with the assignment of the book for next month and all that? So I'll have it.
Yep.
In some sort of email too.
Yep. So
I just don't know the protocol yet, how it all rolls out.
Yep. So I'll email everybody just the link to this recording, and then what we're reading for next month and the date of the next 2 books. But we'll also update our website, the page for Teach Climate with the new books coming out.
Cool.
All right.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you, ladies. It was lovely to chat. Betsy, thank you so much for all of your homework and your expertise. Wendy, thank you so much for joining us for the first time.
Thank you. And, I hate to say it, but honestly, I think through all this, since you're listed as Climate Generation, I didn't hear your name. Are you Jenna?
I'm Jenna. Yeah.
Hi, Jenna.
I'm the education coordinator with Climate Gen, so K-12.
Nice to meet you, Jenna.
Yeah, you too. I hope sometime we can meet in person.
Yeah, I like that. And nice to see you again so soon, Betsy.
Yeah, sounds good. Have a great holiday, everybody.
Yeah, you too.
Bye, you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.